Welcome to How to Money with Cole and Cole.
I'm Cole.
And I'm Cole.
We coach people every day on their money and how to plan for the future.
As financial advisors, we're here to have an honest conversation and educate you on how to money. Intentionally and passionately to hit your money goals. And we'll throw in some sports talk along the way.
Our mission and goal of this podcast is to improve your money journey and help you create the financial life you deserve.
So let's talk money.
And sports.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome back to How to Money with Cole and Cole. I'm your host, Caleb Westall, here today with Spin Market, and I'm joined by Cole Peterson and Cole Jaski.
What's up, Caleb?
What's going on?
We're here with the How to Money with Cole and Cole show, episode 3.
Yeah, episode 3. We're on our way.
Yeah, we are.
We might get to 10 before they fire us, but we'll see.
Yeah, well, you got to commit to doing 12, so
okay.
you're stuck with that.
Is that the number?
That's the number. If you do it, you got to do 12.
All right, we'll see.
Awesome. Well, last time, I think we made a lot of picks, actually, and I don't know. I'm not as big a basketball fan as I am a golf fan, but I know I think I won the closest to being right for the Masters pick.
You picked McElroy.
Yeah.
He finished second.
We did say how hard it is to pick the winner.
Yeah,
so
impossible.
Yeah.
I think Cole Jaski deserves some credit over there, but Cole Peterson did pick the correct NCAA tournament champion.
Yeah.
So the
Kansas.
scores 1-1.
Yeah.
And my Tar Heels did better than I thought they would. We're so close to winning the championship.
Well,
I didn't even get. I had a crazy weekend that weekend. I didn't even get to watch the game, but I pulled it up after, and it was
the Monday night game.
Yeah,
the championship game.
Yeah, it was insane. So
I was pulling for the Tar Heels just because of you. Actually, now I was like, oh, okay,
And it looked like a halftime. They
Yeah,
were away with it.
Yeah.
I know.
Couldn't believe it.
I know. Yeah, so that was unfortunate. Peacocks did good. That was a gift from above for North Carolina to have to play the Peacocks.
I couldn't believe they won.
Yep.
They beat Purdue.
Yep.
Yeah, but
That was crazy.
so yeah, we got 1-1. We'll see how this continues.
Yeah.
I did watch. I told everyone last time, I was like, I'm probably not going to watch any, but I'll keep up with it. I will admit, I watched about an hour of the Masters on Sunday.
All right.
that week. So
we're wearing on you already.
yeah,
Yeah.
I watched. I knew it was going to be late in the day when it ended, so I watched the last hour of it. So
Yeah.
I saw that crazy shot by McElroy from the sand trap on the
Yep.
last hole.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
And then his plane partner made the shot right after him.
I know,
So
that was
it
crazy.
crazy. Yeah, it was fun to see Tiger back out there though.
Yeah, no, it was awesome. Long time off for him, and he's kind of I don't know what the viewership numbers were, but I bet it was pretty off
They
the
were
charts.
record.
Yeah, were they? Okay, yeah. So
they just released them
yeah,
like yesterday,
and that's
so.
crazy. Just every time you can just feel like the draw, even just the normal people that aren't even golf fans, all of a sudden are talking about Tiger's playing or whatever it might be. So now we just need the regular weather here in Iowa to cooperate so we can start playing.
no kidding.
Normally we played like 10 rounds, 15 rounds by now. I think I've been out like twice. So yeah,
too.
like
It
twice.
snowed on Easter.
Yeah.
Like, when does that happen?
I know, horrible.
But yeah, so I just made some golf notes because I told him I'm just gonna look up the scores. So Scotty Scheffler, I don't know if he surprised everybody because he was number 1 in the world or something like that.
Yeah, well,
But-
he just became number 1 in the world, and he's not like a household name.
Yeah, I'd
so-
never heard of him.
And
Right.
golf is so like what he's done the first half of the year though. It's like very unheard of. I mean, he's won almost every tournament he's played in. Generally that's the hard thing to do is to pick the favorite, or the person that on paper is like, oh, he should win because he's kind of winning every tournament he's going into. That very rarely happens. So it tells you kind of how good he's probably being at this time.
I looked after we made our picks last time, and John Rahm was the favorite.
Yeah.
And I was like,
That's crazy.
I didn't assume he would be the favorite. And then, Scheffler obviously ran away with it. But golf's one of those funny sports. It's like when the ball's going in it's weird to say, but when the ball's going in the hole, it seems like an easy game.
Yep.
But then 6 months later, you can't make a 4-foot putt.
Yep.
It's one of those games that
It's the most humbling thing you can go through. I think.
Yeah.
From a sport standpoint.
right when you think you have it figured out.
Yeah.
You're shooting 65, you're
Yep.
shooting 72 every round, and then all of a sudden you can't break 80.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's one of those sports, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, I've never ever paid attention to it, but I can tell just by the little bit I've seen that it's very up and down. Like, you can have good days, bad days, and it's just, every sport's that way, but it feels like golf really is that way, and it's magnified because there's so many competitors that are so close.
Mm-hmm.
You could win and then drop to, 75th and miss the cut.
Yep.
Or whatever it was. So yeah, I saw that you had John Rahm. He finished tied for 27th.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, I looked it up right before this.
That's good.
I looked up right before this because I was like,
I knew he made the
see.
cut.
Solid pick.
And then Tiger finished 47th,
Well,
but he did go 1 under par on day one.
Yep.
So
yeah, that
that's
was
pretty
exciting.
good.
That was pretty
He
cool.
was in 10th.
Yeah.
Couldn't believe it. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And so I will say you both did good picking.
Hey, we picked
someone,
a guy that made the cut.
Yeah, I was about to
Yep.
say.
That's half the battle.
Yeah.
Right.
So I saw there were some big names that didn't make the cut.
Who did you guys pick to win the NCAA? I forget.
I picked Duke.
Oh, that's right.
I picked Duke too.
Yeah, we both
Yeah.
picked Duke, but
Who'd they lose to? Oh, North Carolina.
North Carolina.
Yeah.
First time North Carolina and Duke have ever met in the NCAA tournament.
That's crazy.
Yeah. That's nuts.
That's nuts.
And I was
And they've
just like,
met the most times out of any two teams in history, I believe.
Yeah.
I saw that stat,
And
but never in the NCAA.
their last 100 games going into the tournament, they were 50 and 50. That
That's
they
nuts.
split
That's
them.
unbelievable.
That number though,
crazy.
the thing is like I saw a stat line 3 years ago when Duke and North Carolina played, and they're like the last 100 games they're 50 and 50.
Mhm.
3 years later, they're still 50 and 50. It's
Yeah.
insane. They're so even. But so yeah, I was a little disappointed about that. But
The NCAA tournament
congrats to Cole
fun.
on picking the closest to the Masters, and Cole on picking the
smarter Cole.
the champion. So, I think maybe we should talk some money now because that is what the name of the title
Let's
is.
keep talking about sports.
Yep.
I
We could always talk sports. So
I've talked
We
about
better
doing
transition.
a sports podcast for a long time. I'm like, I could go on a long time about talking sports, but that's not
Right.
why people are here.
NASCAR
So.
radio with Caleb.
No, it would be more than just NASCAR. but
I'm just
anyway.
I'm just joking.
All right. Well, I think today's topic, they emailed me this list this morning, is we're going to talk about 401ks versus IRAs and what is a Roth IRA versus a traditional IRA. And I'll just say this, I don't really know much of anything about either one. So maybe y'all can explain to me, because, I kind of fit with the listener probably, is I have very little knowledge on this stuff. Maybe dumb it down for me and help me understand what's the purpose, point, what's the difference, pros and cons of each one.
Yeah. So just in general, a 401k is through your employer and an IRA is on your own. IRA stands for individual retirement account. 401k, why do they call it a 401k?
I don't know.
I don't even know.
It was probably with one of the
tax rules.
Yeah, the acts.
Yeah.
So one of the acts that were created. Some reason that 401k was the terminology they used. I don't know why.
Yeah,
actually.
yeah.
Well, because
It's an
IRA is
interesting
two
Two
stands
guys
for
that have
individual-
taken like
Yeah.
17 securities
Yeah,
tests don't
yeah,
know
all
why
kinds,
they call
but
it a 401k,
yeah.
but why they call it, well, we won't worry about that. But 401k is at your employer. It's called an employer-sponsored plan.
Mm-hmm.
So your 401k is technically owned by your employer. They run the plan, and you are just a participant. You are under their plan. You participate that way. An IRA, you own the IRA yourself because it's your individual retirement account. No one else is tied to that. You have beneficiaries and everything like that, but your account is yours. So that is the main difference between the two. They're similar, but they're different at the same time.
Yeah, so 401k is a retirement savings vehicle. It's generally going to be under an employer, some type of a group employer. It's considered a group benefit. So it's going to be something, as an employee, you can participate in. Your employer provides it. There's generally some type of matching or maybe a profit share, a lot of different options within it, but it is something that's most commonly provided by your employer.
Yeah, so you take money out of your paycheck and you put it into your 401k. You have different ways to go about that, but the general thing that people want to make sure that they're doing is that they're getting the employer match. Yep. So a lot of employers, now that we've went through the recession and the COVID and all that, mainly it's back to kind of normal where employers are matching 401ks for the most part. Some suspended during that time, some didn't, but so an employer is going to match part of your contribution. So if I'm putting in 6% of my pay, my employer may put in 3%.
Yep.
If you put in 0, they're going to put in 0 most of the time. That's typically how they work. So if you're leaving that 3% on if you're not putting anything into your 401k when you're eligible, you're leaving that 3% just out there, and you're not getting the benefit that all your other employees at work are getting. So that's the most common mistake I would say people make.
That's something I'd say for Caleb, our listeners, anyone. One thing, make sure you're getting your employer match. Always start there, right? Maximize. It's a benefit there for you. Make sure you're getting the most out of it. So if it's 3%, 5%, whatever the criteria is, for you to be eligible for that match, I think that's, that'd be one little nugget you can take from the day. Make sure everyone just do a quick check that they're at least doing that piece.
Yeah, that's speaking from my experience at Principal. That was the one thing that I would talk to people about on the phone and be like, okay, what is your employer match? And we had all the data in front of us. We would be able to tell them what their employer matched. And I'll be like, I see you're only doing 5%, but your employer will match up to 6%. If you do 6%, they'll do 3%. If you're doing 5%, they're only going to match 2%. Do you want that other percent that your employer is willing to give you as far as an employer benefit goes? And most people are like, oh yeah, I didn't even know that. Mm-hmm. So that's the most common mistake I would say I see people make with 401ks.
So let's pivot a little bit here. So I'm going to kick it back to you. Maybe explain the difference, or what's an IRA? Let's start there versus the differences. Let's start with an IRA.
Right. So IRA stands for Individual Retirement Account. As many people probably don't understand, they call it an IRA or what, they don't know that it actually stands for Individual Retirement Account. So there's different types of IRAs, just like there's different types of 401ks. We're going to talk in general terms. An IRA is basically another vehicle that you're putting money into that is not under an employer plan. Again, individual retirement account. It's not tied to an employer. So it's something that you individually have started with, a financial advisor, or maybe you went online and found a company that does IRAs. But for the most part, you're starting it individually yourself. You're not filing this through an employer. And there's different contribution limits to that you have to stick to, and we'll get into that a little bit. But it's something that you are investing in as an individual person.
So a 401k would be one that would be a retirement plan through your employer.
Yep.
And an IRA would be on your own.
Yep.
So,
401k has a sponsor. Generally, the plan, is sponsored by the employer. They chose to offer that as a benefit to their employees.
Gotcha. So, how are they similar and different?
So, similarities. They're both retirement savings vehicles first and foremost. They both have, we don't get too crazy in the variations, a lot of different sides, but they both have a pre-tax where you can get a tax deduction for putting money into, and most of them have what's called an after-tax contribution where you're not getting a deduction, but that's called a Roth, whether a Roth IRA, Roth 401k. Those are, I would say, the two major similarities, and then also some of the how the money comes out as well. There's quite a bit of similarities on that end, but without getting too crazy into the weeds, that's kind of some broad scopes, but the retirement vehicles, at the heart, that's what they were designed for, was retirement-based savings.
Yeah, and both the 401k and the IRA are going to take your money and all the earnings that you make on those, and they're going to defer all that until you take the money out. So unlike an individual brokerage account where you pay capital gains and dividends tax on your stocks, bonds, whatever you have in there, in a retirement account, none of that is paid until you take it out. And if it's in a Roth, then you never have to pay that tax on that. So a lot of when you're talking about retirement accounts, the major advantage of those is tax deferment, is that you don't have to pay that tax, or that tax is forgiven. In a Roth, it's forgiven because you put it in after tax. So that's the main thing with a retirement account, both 401k and IRA.
So let's shift a little bit to some of the differences. There's a ton of similarities, but I think one of the major differences is the contribution amounts, and that's between an individual retirement account versus the 401k account, quite significant difference. And then also the IRA account does not, you're not getting any employer match or employer side contributions. So that's a big piece there.
Yeah. The contribution limit for a 401k is much higher. Where an IRA, you can only do $6,000 if you're under the age of 50, or $7,000 if you're over the age of 50 for the entire year. That's the limit. For a 401k, you can do up to $19,500 a year if you're under 50, up to 26,000. Do I have that right? 26,000, I think, total. They change the numbers every year, so that's why
it does.
That's why I'm saying that with a question mark.
Yeah. It might be 20,000 now for the 20, because we're always in rear planning, because today I know we're this podcast will be put out a couple weeks from now, but today is actually the tax filing deadline. So the day we're showing. So that's kind of a topic going on, where you can still, it's kind of a unique thing with retirement accounts, with IRAs specifically, you can still do up until today, as long as we got the check, you can do contributions for the prior year. And generally there is some cost of living type adjustments with the amount, the limitations that you can put in those accounts. And those are based, changed periodically. Some years they stay exact same, but that's where, we've kind of got two different tax years we're thinking about as advisors at the moment right now.
Mm-hmm. So, what would you say are like the benefit? Well, let me rephrase that. Is there a benefit of one over the other than, like you said, the contribution limit? I mean, for 401k be much higher. So in that sense, it kind of would make sense for it to be that, from my standpoint anyway. Right. Is there a benefit to one over the other?
So I would say the major benefit of a 401k is the contribution limit. Plus, you're able to put more Roth money into something like that after tax, and we can get into more of that down the road. But I would say the advantage of an IRA is that is in your own account. You can do with it what you want. You can invest it how you want. Or the employer plan, a 401k, you have to follow all the employer rules. You're only offered the investments that the employer offers to all the different people in that plan. Where an IRA has open architecture, yep. We can do anything you want inside of an IRA. We can buy you Apple stock, or you can buy a municipal bond. I mean, you can do whatever you want to. Where in a 401k, generally you don't have that option. Some of them do, some of them don't, but generally that's what it is.
Most of the 401ks, the employer they design that plan, or they have an advisor help them design that plan. And there's, anywhere from 12 to 20 investment options, versus the IRA, it's almost unlimited amount of options. You could, as many stocks as there are out there, you generally can hold about anything in a retirement account, versus the 401k. It's a little bit more structured based on, because it's going to be offered to a lot of individuals within that plan. So it's not an open architecture type format.
So how you choose it would be based on your personal, your needs, and also just kind of your spot in life, whatever's going on for you would be.
I think what's available to you.
Yeah.
Too, you got to think of, if your employer obviously is offering that and you get a 6% match, by golly, you better be saving, making sure you're getting that 6% match. And as well, there's contribution limitations and stuff to IRAs as well. If you have an employer plan, you make X amount of dollars. Again, we don't want to get into the weeds of that, but it limits people from doing IRAs sometimes if they do have an employer-sponsored 401k plan they can be in. So that's sometimes you're kind of forced one vehicle or the other based on your work situation. But that's and as far as the investment selection goes, I mean that's purely customized for the individual. Unfortunately, that's one of the downfalls with the 401k. It's limited based on the options the plan was designed for, but there's generally a wide variety of options still, that for a younger individual or an older individual, generally the plans are they keep that in mind of like, hey, we've got to be able to tailor to quite a few, but still keep it somewhat simple. So.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to we've talked a little bit about Roth versus traditional, and there's advantages to both, but just in general, Cole, tell us a little bit about Roth versus, when we say traditional, that's pre-tax.
Yep.
That means that you're getting the tax break up front. Roth is after tax.
Yep. So
tell us the major difference between those two, and why one does one or over the other.
Generally, it's one way I kind of like to think of it. Do you want are you worried about the tax break now, or do you want the tax benefit on the back end? That's kind of the two. So you start with that question. Okay, I want it now. Then you want the deduction, so you will do a pre-tax contribution to your IRA versus, hey, no, I don't need that deduction. I'm comfortable where I am on the tax side, so I want to save and get the tax break on the back end where then it comes out tax-free. The Roth vehicle is basically just as Cole described. It's you get paid $1,000, you pay your taxes, $200 goes to the government, and then you got $800 left, and then you take $200 and put it into that Roth IRA. And, it grows tax deferred. And then if you use it after 59 and a half, all that money comes out tax-free. So if you save over a 30-year window, and you got, hopefully we do a really good job of the investment gains and make $1 million in there, whatever it might be, theoretically it all can be tax-free if the vehicle is used right. So it's kind of purely based, I would say, not all based on the, the right now, but it's kind of the long-term goals and does it make sense to do one way or the other. And I think that's where, our job comes into play quite a bit is talking through along with maybe their other professionals, their tax person or their attorney or whoever's helping them prepare their tax return on saying, okay, which one makes the most sense for you? And we talk through the options, and that's how a lot of times we help people dictate which direction, because it can sometimes be, well, what do you think we should do? And it'd be nice if everyone had a big tax-free bucket. I mean, no one wants to everyone wants to make as much money as they can and not pay taxes. Right. Well, maybe there's some people that don't want that, but I
make as much as you can and not pay taxes.
Yeah,
for sure.
So there's probably someone listening. Like, no, I don't. It's not me.
Let's do a quick example just to kind of do this in the real world. So
okay.
Caleb over here. Let's say Caleb has $5,000 that he wants to put into an IRA for this year.
Okay.
You got your $5,000 check.
I would love a $5,000 check.
Well, you got to give it to me for me to invest it. But you got $5,000 and you're like, you know what? I'm going to do the responsible thing. I'm going to put this in an IRA. I'm going to call Cole. Okay, Cole, I got to open an IRA. I got $5,000. I want to do contribution. It's April 18th. You can do the contribution for 2021. What am I going to put it into? So what I'm going to ask you is I'm going to go, okay, well, Caleb, although I'm going to ask you your social security number and all those things, but I'm also going to say, well, how much money do you make? I'm going to ask you that. You don't have to answer that right now.
Okay, I'll make up a number. I make $39,000 a year.
Okay,
make up a number.
So we're going to ask you those questions. So what's called suitability. We have to get to know you before we invest your money. So we're gonna say, okay, now do you have any reason that you would need a tax break for this year or last year when you filed? We're talking about 2021 contributions. Do you need some sort of tax break for last year?
I do not.
You do not. Okay, so you don't need any sort of tax break. So you've already paid taxes on this money. It's money that's out of your checking account, right? Now, would you like to invest that money in a Roth IRA? Watch it grow until you need it at retirement, either at 59 and a half. Or past that is when you can take it out tax-free. Say that $5,000 grows to $50,000. You can take all that out tax-free if you don't want to take a tax break up front. That's how a Roth works. Now, if you made $390,000 a year and you're going to do a $5,000 contribution and maybe you wanted the tax break now, and we put the $5,000 in, you get that to write it off on your taxes, and then it also grows to $50,000. Well, then you got to pay taxes on that $50,000. So there's good and bad to both. Some people want the tax break now, and they don't. They'll worry about the taxes later. Some people like, oh, I don't really need a tax, like you are. Like, I don't need a tax break now. I'd rather take it out tax free in retirement. So
yeah,
that's
that
the
makes
difference.
sense.
I think it comes down to the individual situation too, and I think that's where. Yeah, there's a lot of rules and standards of our business, but ultimately it comes down to the goals and objectives of the client, what's most important to them. That's kind of the thing. And I think that's one of the number one things about our job is helping people define their goals, to say, okay, well, this is based on what you're saying, this probably makes the most sense, and we can give you a numbers analysis all the time, right? And say, okay, here's statistically the right answer, but ultimately, sometimes that's not what's most important.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, so right now we're going to take a break and hear a word from our production team at Spin Market. And when we come back, we're going to talk about how you guys kind of fit into this picture of a 401k versus an IRA and all of the stuff involved with that. So with that being said, here's a word from Spin Market.
This podcast is produced by Spin Market and Digital.
Located in Fort Dodge, Iowa, Spin Market's highly skilled team can help you increase your market by updating your website, improving SEO, designing advertisements, and producing podcasts that will grab the attention of your market.
Contact Spin Market today for all your digital marketing needs at digitalagent@spinmarketwith2ks.com or call us at 515-302-8026. And to learn more, visit our website at www.spinmarketwith2ks.com.
That's digitalagent@spinmarket.com or 515-302-8026 or visit our website www.spinmarketwith2ks.com. Okay, guys, welcome back. So before the break, we were talking about 401ks and IRAs and just how each one works together and the different components of each one. So, for me, as someone who's not very educated on it, I would never be able to do any of this kind of stuff by myself. So I would have to go to someone like you.
Yeah.
I did. I would have to go to someone like you. So how do you guys fit into this picture?
Yeah, I think there can be a wide variety of ways that we can advise clients and things that come up. But I'll give a couple. There's obviously many out there, but I'm just going to give a couple of ones that are very common for us. So I think first and foremost is, we get this question, am I saving enough? Right? That's the first and foremost thing that we can really, kind of nudge people to make sure based on, what they want and when they're planning to retire, when they want to retire. And that's the first thing I always tell clients is you want to have the greatest impact on your retirement plan. One of the number one things is your contribution rate.
Right, and saving early.
Yeah, and saving early, and then how much you are actually saving. I mean, that's the number one thing is you have the greatest performing investments, but if you're only willing to save X amount of dollars and you want to spend something that's far greater than that, it's not going to work, even with the best investments in the world. So number one thing is reviewing your contributions, and then we got into the Roth pre-tax, we can help there. Okay, hey, maybe it makes more sense based on your plan to do Roth, or maybe it's a portion of the two. That's the first one. Second one I would say is especially with the 401k is kind of tying all the assets together, because we have a lot of clients that they kind of have that I kind of use the clutter drawer, right? There's a lot of things. They may have an old employer account, old IRA, they have investment account from their uncle or whatever it might be, and that's what we'll do is try to look at the whole picture and tie it all together so we can kind of paint that plan and say, okay, here's this account, this account, this account. How do they work together? And that's what sometimes the 401k clients maybe say that's ran by my employer. That's not when our reality, they're still in control of some of that and got to make some of those decisions. So we'll give recommendations, on the funds that are available. You're still limited to the plan, what's available in there. But those are two, I would say, of the most common things. But, pivoting a little bit there, Cole, tell us about some of the misconceptions, maybe of IRAs, 401ks, some of the things that you've ran across or you think.
Yeah. So like you said, your 401k is ran by your employer as a whole. So they own the 401k. They do not manage your money.
Yep.
That is probably the number one thing people are like, oh, yeah, my 401k, my employer takes care of that. They don't.
Nope.
They do not take care of it. You are in charge of your own 401k. It's under their umbrella. You're in charge of putting the investments correctly, the contributions. And if you don't like doing that stuff, that's where we come into play. I mean, that's where we can help you with that stuff. So although your 401k is owned by the employer, they don't manage it for you. You pick the investments, you do your contributions, and everything like that. So that's probably the number one thing that we hear. And then the not a misconception, but probably the number one mistake that I see people make with that also, other than the contribution thing that we talked about earlier, is the investments. Some people I've had a 30-year-old come in and he's in a 1% fixed investment inside their 401k. And I'm like, are you retiring next year that I don't know about? Because you need to take some risk. The most general thing that I tell people is the younger you are, the more risk you can take on.
Yep.
The older you are, the less risk you can take on, because you're getting closer to retirement. You're going to maybe use some of the money. You don't want to see a big downfall. But the younger you are and the longer that you have to be in the market, I mean, you think of that 30-year-old, even if he was going to retire at 60, He has 30 years. So you think 30 years back from right now, it was 1992. I had my, flat top.
That was the year I was born. Sorry, Cole. Sorry there.
I was in 8th grade. I was wearing my high black socks. I was trying to be like the Fab Five.
That's awesome.
My baggy shorts on. So 30 years ago, the stock market was at 4,000. The Dow was at 4,000.
Yeah.
Now it's at 35,000. So that's what I'm talking about is the growth. That even though the stock market might be high right now or whatever your conception of the stock market is right now, 30 years from now, it's going to be higher. If I don't say guarantee on this podcast at all, I'm not going to say that. Most likely, the stock market 30 years from now is going to be higher than it is right now.
I think you're making a great point for why this should be a price. Sometimes, finance and personal finance retirement plans is something that people maybe just put on the back burner or like, I'm saving, that's good enough. But you made a great point of as 30 years from now, a lot can change in 30 years. And that's where your plan will change. So that's where I think something, working with an advisor specifically, or even you're just making sure you're checking your finances once a year, your whole picture once a year, your allocation should probably change, as you get closer to that retirement. And that's where it's important to continue to look at that and have those checkpoints of like, am I on the right track or am I not? And that's where I think, doing some of these things even if it's on an annual basis and forcing yourself, and sometimes they can be dry, I understand forcing yourself to do it, to make sure that even if it's a 1% difference each year, that's a lot over 30 years. And that's what I think we're getting at is, that point across.
They're saving money and then they're saving money correctly.
Yep.
In the correct vehicles. And that's probably one of the bigger mistakes we just see in general too. People, end up with $500,000 in a money market account at the bank earning 0.1%. It's like, do we want to leave that there or do we want to get that into something that has the possibility to grow a lot better? So
yeah, that makes sense. So someone like me, I'm 20 years old, about to get married, getting ready to,
congratulations, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
My life is changing a lot, and I look and I'm about to finish college, so I start thinking about the future. What is the big things for me in my position that you would say for anybody in my position, to remember about the 401k and the IRA and preparing for the future with this kind of stuff?
All right. So do you have car insurance?
I do.
Do you have renters or home insurance?
No.
No. Okay.
My parents do.
Bad example.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay. Do you have, so what I think of is the amount that you put into your retirement account. Then the reason I went down that route was think of it as retirement insurance. Do you want to retire, Caleb?
Yes.
Okay. So to do that, do you think maybe you should put some money towards that to be able to retire when you want to, or do you want to just retire whenever it happens?
Right.
Yeah. So that's probably what I would tell someone your age is put it in there as just like your bill, just like your home insurance, your
treat
car
it like a bill.
insurance. Yeah.
That's what I always say. Treat it like a bill. So.
Yep. And even if you put it on your budget as retirement insurance, I've had people do that. Like, so they just don't think of it as like that's, money going into an account that I can get to or anything like that. It's retirement insurance. If you want to retire, you got to start saving at some point, even if it's a small amount. So, I mean, me and Cole are big proponents of, even if you're just doing $50 a month or $100 a month, do something because it will build quickly.
And then try to, I'll just kind of piggyback on that a little bit. On an annual basis or however often you're checking on stuff, try to increase it even just 1% or 0.5% to where, as you get a raise, proportionally try to make sure your savings is also, moving in that direction. Because I think that's an easy thing. If we've got an extra $3,000 a year, we'll, if you're not disciplined, you'll find a way to spend it.
Yeah.
So if you're like, hey, I got a raise, I'm going to proportionally save that same amount. Yeah, you still can spend a little extra, but then you're naturally just getting yourself conditioned to that savings. And that's the number one thing I think is the people that, we see that are in better spots and have more decisions on the back end, are the ones that saved early, and they also increase their savings along the way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That I mean, if you think about it logically, it makes sense. You know, the earlier you save, the earlier you could potentially retire. The more you save, the earlier you could potentially retire.
Doesn't have to be that complex. Sometimes it just
Yeah.
takes discipline. I think that's a lot of the thing. It takes the discipline to do it.
You don't have to make a lot of money to retire
No.
early. You just have to make those sacrifices
Yep.
if you want to. Some people don't want to, which is fine. But if someone comes in to me and says, "Hey, I'd like to retire. I'm 20 years old. I'd like to retire at 55." Let me. And I've set up plans for people like that. And they're like, "I want to retire at 55." Okay, well, we've got to start doing this, this, and this. And if you're willing to follow that, I can show you on my television screen that you will be able to retire at 55. Some of them will do it. Some, it's you got to find out what's important to the person.
Yeah. So I think that's pretty much going to wrap up, unless you guys have any closing thoughts about retirement. And
Nothing on my end.
Go Broncos.
Go Broncos.
I'm
Okay.
a Steelers guy, so go Steelers.
Okay. Well, with that being said, I think we're going to pretty much wrap this episode up. Thank you all for joining us today on How to Money with Cole and Cole. Next time, in 2 weeks, we'll be back to talk about life insurance. Another big one that I think probably a lot of people don't really think about as much as they should, I would guess.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll be back. So where can people find you on social media?
So you can find me on Facebook at Cole CFG, KOLE, the right way to spell it. And then I'm also on Twitter and LinkedIn.
Yep, I'm on Twitter and LinkedIn as well. You can also find me on Facebook at Cole, COLE, CFG.
Is that the right way to spell it?
That is the correct way. The Cole with the C.
Mine's the right way. His is the correct way.
Okay.
That's the plan. That's the continuous joke right there. We're gonna get harassed for that.
I'm gonna keep egging this on.
So
I had a client email me and say something about that. I was like, maybe we're hammering that too much.
Yeah.
But
that's all right.
Hey, you know what? If there's no jokes in it, then you lose the audience. So you gotta have a good,
we're both
good
dads,
time.
so we'll call it the dad jokes.
Yeah, there you go.
lot of
Nothing wrong with
dad
that.
jokes.
So then you can follow Central Financial Group on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn at the Central Financial Group. You can visit their website, www.centralfinancialgroup.com. You can visit the Fort Dodge website from there. I believe it's cfgfortdodge.com.
Yep.
And that would be where Cole and Cole would be. Of course, find our podcast on all podcasting platforms. And we will see you next time on How to Money with Cole and Cole.
All right, see ya.
You've been listening to How to Money with Cole and Cole, the podcast of Essential Financial Group, courtesy of Spin Market. Learn more about the Central Financial Group on their website, www.centralfinancialgroup.com.
For now, I'm Cole,
And I'm Cole.
and we'll see you on the greens.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through Royal Alliance Associations Incorporated, member FINRA, SIPC. Royal Alliance Associations Incorporated is separately owned, and other entities and/or marketing names, products, or services referenced here are independent of Royal Alliance Associations Incorporated. Material discussed is meant for general informational purposes only, and it is not to be construed as tax, legal, or investment advice. Please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information should be relied upon when coordinated with individual professional advice. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. Diversification does not insure against loss. Any guarantees discussed refer only to fixed insurance products and are backed by the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company.